Okay folks, just going to make a start on coral reefs. Okay, so I'll open up the presentation here. Okay, so you can see your headings, alright, and please make a note of those on your folder sheet. Now, I've made some little tips here as well. I'll add some of these in our lessons going forward. Today though, you can use your biology notes, alright, for lessons. If you've done it on coral reef already, you should know some of this information already, alright, and there's quite a lot. There's also some lessons now on cable TV. Alright, the information for BGCSE Geography is here. Alright, and there's also on this topic as well, because we're going to cover a lot of information quite quickly, and there's endless videos on YouTube about this topic. Alright, so if you type in something like where are coral reefs found, you'll find lots of videos, or how do coral reefs form, what are the values of coral reef, how can we protect coral reef, so on. Okay, so let's jump straight in. Where in the world will we find these? Now you're going to be making a lot of notes today, okay? So please have your folder sheet ready. You can pause each slide as you go. Obviously the brown patches are continents, with the light blue being the oceans, all right? And you can see the red dots showing a base or a reef base, all right? What you will notice first of all is they're mainly, and I want you to write this down, they're mainly between the tropics, okay? Tropic of Capricorn and Tropic of Cancer. Okay, all reefs grow pretty much or thrive between those areas. We'll see why in a little bit. Okay. Essentially then also, okay, the vast majority are just off the coast of land. Okay, there are some out in the middle of the oceans, but most grow along or near the coast of the land. All right, and we'll look at that also in more detail. Okay. One final thing is where they are, they tend to go on the eastern side of land masses. You can see here, okay, and here you can see all the way down along here. So they tend to go on the eastern side. We're also just going to name a couple of places. Okay, you got South America, obviously Australia, Indonesia, okay, Thailand. You got parts of what we could say here is Madagascar and the Maldives. Okay, so you can get all those countries down. We're also going to just note as well, look at the Caribbean over here, okay. Most countries in the Caribbean have some. Again, note down the best examples: Bahamas, Belize, Jamaica has some, Cayman Islands, Bermuda, or sorry, not Bermuda, Barbados. Okay, so there's lots of different examples in there. St. Lucia is another one in the Caribbean. Okay, so you'll need to know that for your homework, so please make a note of those. Right, let's move on. Factors affecting coral reefs. So what are the factors that affect where they grow? Okay, now these are commonly called limiting factors. What are the things that limit where coral reef can and cannot grow? All right, they will slow down or inhibit, meaning stop the growth of coral reefs altogether. You're going to need to know at least 4 of these. Okay, there's 7 major ones we'll look at in just a second, but you can make a note of the temperature of the water, depth of the water, light, salinity, sediments, wave action, and exposure to air. So make a quick note of those and we move on. Now, limiting factors. Here we have them here, okay? I hope that's clear enough. As we read through these, identify the 4 you think are the most important factors, okay? And make a note of these under where you've been making your notes. So you're going to make a note of any of the first 4 of these. In addition to this, you'll also have a question about this for homework, and you're to use different factors than in your notes, okay? So between what you write down now and your homework task, you should cover all 7 factors, okay? So let's jump in. First of all is water temperature. I know it says temperature, but please say water temperature, okay? Don't say temperature of the air. The reefs cannot grow in water less or under 18 degrees Celsius, okay? So they need to be warmer than that. And then anything colder they can't grow. That is why they're only found in the tropics, all right? Depth of water. Anybody who dives or snorkels regularly will know the coral reef is found in shallow water. Hence why the Bahamas has so much of it. All right, think back to our earlier lessons. Coral reef is limited to water depth. Most reefs grow within 25 meters of the surface or less. Okay, they cannot grow in deep water. The next one explains why they need light. Okay, the shallow water is largely because light is needed for the little algae. Okay, zooxanthellae. I can't really say that word. They live in the corals and they produce its food. So they need the light to photosynthesize. So if the water's too deep, there's no light, there's no algae, there's no coral. Okay, very simple. Salinity, corals are marine creatures and they're intolerant of water less than 32 parts salt per unit, but will tolerate highly saline conditions. Okay, so they need a certain amount of salt in the water. Okay, sediment then, this is another important one down here. Sediment has an adverse effect on coral reef. Okay, if sediment or material, sand or little silty bits, they can get into the corals, clogging up the feeding structures. Okay, cloudy water will also reduce the light available. So if they're in very rough seas with lots of sediment blocking out the light or clogging up the coral themselves from feeding, they'll die out. So again, the Bahamas is very clear, slow water. Okay, wave action, again, like I was just saying about the speed of the water. Coral reefs generally prefer areas there is a stronger wave action which ensures freshly oxygenated water. So you do need some movement in the water. You can't have like a lake or something. Okay, so again, they need some wave action, but you don't want it too big to stir up all the sediment. All right, and again, the Bahamas is perfect. Yes, we do have our shallow oceans, okay, to allow in light. We've got good salt conditions. We've got some wave action to keep lots of air in the water, but not enough to stir up all of the sediment. That's why our water is so clear. All right. And finally, then you've also got exposure to air. Corals will die if they're exposed to air for too long. So they need to be covered in water for the vast majority of time. All right. There are 7 factors. Make a note of 4 of those, all right, that you think are the most important. Now, we're going to look, there's 3 main types of coral reef. Okay, don't worry about the handout sheet. We're not reading through that. We're just sticking to the notes in the PowerPoint. So we're going to look at the types of coral reef, okay? There's 3 main types, like I said, but before that, we're just going to run through 6 quick steps on how a coral reef actually forms. You should have done this in biology before, okay? And I'm just going to highlight the YouTube videos again. So first of all, corals are living organisms. They're not rocks. They're living organisms with fleshy bodies called polyps. As they grow, all right, they grow in big reefs, they grow in big networks. As they grow, they produce calcium carbonate. There we have our calcium carbonate again, which forms their skeleton and adds to the reef. So these things actually produce their own skeleton, okay, their own kind of shell, and that's what the coral reef is made from, all right. Within these polyps, then, you get these tiny algae, all right, which live and photosynthesize. So zooxanthellae is how I usually try and say it. Within these polyps, okay, you've got these algae, and they photosynthesize and live within the polyps, okay, or around or beside the polyps. So during photosynthesis, these algae produce the things the polyp needs, oxygen, sugars, and so on like that, okay. At the same time, the polyps then produce carbon dioxide and nitrogen, which the algae needs to live, and they also give the algae a safe place to live. So this is called symbiosis, or a symbiotic relationship, when 2 organisms live together and offer benefits to each other. Okay, so that is something else that makes the coral reef so delicate, is that they've got this first of all, they need a lot of very specific conditions to survive. Secondly, it's a symbiotic relationship, so it's not enough just for the polyps or just for the algae to survive. We need both of them to have a flourishing coral reef, okay? So that's what makes them so fragile and vulnerable. Right, moving on then, 3 different types of reef, okay? Now, we're just going to look at something called a fringe reef, a barrier reef, and an atoll, okay? So I'll go through those in a little bit more detail in just a minute. But again, I want to just look at this diagram for a second. This brown bit here is the land, and then we got the ocean. A fringing reef occurs right by the land on the coastline, okay, and it is built up on the seabed. So as land goes under the ocean, it becomes the sea floor, okay. The fringing reef is built under the water, but is right beside the land. A barrier reef is still on this piece of land before it drops down even further, okay, so it's still quite shallow beneath the surface of the ocean, but a barrier reef is a much further distance from the land, okay. The fringe reef is attached to it, whereas a barrier reef is further away. We look then at atolls, which occur in random areas. They're the ones on our map that were far out to sea, okay, so we'll also look at those. Nearly always circular or kind of horseshoe shaped, okay. So I'll continue that in just a couple of minutes.